Welcome back to Le Podcast de Philippe. Where we take a whole bunch of fascinating sources and we break them down. We get to the coolest, the most interesting parts. And today's episode is no different. We're going to be talking about something pretty incredible, and that is DNA and quantum computing.
Okay.
Two fields that you wouldn't necessarily think go together.
Right.
But when you hear about what's going on, it's really, really mind-blowing.
Yeah.
So we're going to be talking about the potential to revolutionize the future with these two fields.
Absolutely.
Imagine storing the entire Library of Congress in a space smaller than a sugar cube.
Wow.
Or being able to harness the power of nature to create computers that can outperform the human brain.
It's amazing.
That's the kind of stuff we're going to be talking about today.
Yeah, that's really the cutting edge of where this is all going.
It is. So before we dive in, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel and give this video a like and stick with us. This is going to be a really fascinating conversation. So let's dive in. I think one of the things that's so captivating about this whole topic is the sheer density of information that DNA can hold.
It's incredible, really, and it's something that scientists have been aware of for a long time, but we're only now starting to really tap into its potential power. 1 gram of DNA can store 450 million terabytes of data. That's the equivalent of 43 million HD movies.
Wow.
Think about that for a second. It's just mind-boggling. And it's not just about the capacity, it's also about the longevity. DNA can store data for thousands of years.
So it's like nature's hard drive.
Exactly. And a very, very efficient one at that. You think about our current data centers, they consume massive amounts of energy, and they're not really sustainable in the long term.
Yeah.
But DNA, it's incredibly stable, and it can last for millennia.
So you're saying we could be storing information that would last for generations and generations?
Absolutely. We could preserve our digital heritage for future civilizations in a way that we can't even imagine with our current technology.
That's incredible. What I find really fascinating is that researchers are also exploring DNA's role in quantum computing.
Yeah, that's one of the most exciting areas of this research.
So there's the University of Beijing.
Right.
They're doing some pretty groundbreaking work.
They are. They're really pushing the boundaries here.
Manipulating DNA at the atomic level using electric fields.
Yeah.
And they're doing something really interesting with the nitrogen atoms.
Yeah. They're controlling the spins of nitrogen atoms within the DNA molecule.
So what is spin?
So spin is a quantum property of atoms.
Okay.
And it basically allows them to exist in multiple states at once.
Okay.
And this is really important for quantum computing because it gives you exponentially more processing power compared to traditional computers.
So are they using the nitrogen atoms as like little information carriers?
Exactly. That's a great way to put it. They're essentially using these spins to encode and process information at the quantum level. It's still early days, but this research suggests that DNA could be the key to building quantum computers that are far more stable and efficient than anything we have today.
So we could potentially have DNA revolutionizing how we store data, but also being the basis for a whole new generation of supercomputers.
That's the incredible thing about this research. It's really blurring the lines between biology and technology.
Yeah.
And it's opening up possibilities that we never thought possible.
It's like DNA is the language of life, and now we're starting to understand how to use that language to power our technology.
Exactly. And if you think about it, DNA has been storing and processing information for billions of years, so it makes sense that we could learn a thing or two from it.
But how does DNA store digital information in the first place? It's kind of like magic, right?
Well, it's not magic, but it is pretty amazing. DNA stores information in the sequence of its 4 nucleotide bases, adenine, guanine, cytosine, and thymine. And these bases act like a digital alphabet. So scientists can translate digital data into sequences of these bases, essentially writing information into the DNA molecule.
So they're like turning digital code into the language of life.
Exactly. And then to retrieve that information, they use a process called DNA sequencing.
Okay.
Which reads the sequence of bases and converts it back into digital data.
That's so cool. But how do you actually access the information? You don't plug a DNA strand into a USB port, do you?
Not quite. It's a bit more complicated than that, but the technology is rapidly advancing and DNA sequencing is becoming faster and cheaper all the time.
So are you saying that someday, instead of these giant data centers that we have, we'll have these tiny DNA drives?
Potentially, yes. Imagine having a drive the size of your fingernail that can store the entire Library of Congress and last for hundreds of years.
And all powered by nature.
It's a game changer, not just for technology, but for the way we preserve our history and culture.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
But it also raises some pretty profound questions.
Really?
If we can store digital data in the very molecule that encodes life,
Right.
are we blurring the lines between the digital and the biological?
That's a great question, and one that we need to carefully consider as we continue to explore the potential of this technology.
Yeah, that is a great place to stop for. Now, we've covered a lot of ground in this first part,
Oh, yeah.
our deep dive, and we'll be back in part 2 to talk about even more fascinating things.
Absolutely. There's so much more to explore.
Welcome back to the podcast of Philippe. We're going even deeper into this fascinating world of DNA and quantum computing, looking at how these two fields could really, change the face of technology as we know it.
Yeah, before we went to the break, we were talking about how scientists are actually using the quantum properties of DNA for computation, and I think it's important to remember that it's not about like turning DNA into a computer in itself, right?
Right.
It's more about using its unique characteristics to actually manipulate quantum information in new and really groundbreaking ways.
Yeah, that's a really important distinction. But I'm curious about like the specific challenges of actually building a DNA-based quantum computer.
Yeah.
What are some of the hurdles that researchers are facing right now?
Well, one of the biggest challenges I think is really just the level of control that's required. You have to
Yeah.
be able to manipulate individual atoms within the DNA molecule, and you have to do it with incredible precision. Because remember, quantum computing relies on these very delicate, very fleeting states of quantum particles.
Yeah.
So you need incredibly sensitive equipment, and you need really sophisticated techniques to make sure that these quantum operations are stable and accurate.
It's like you're trying to build a house of cards on a vibrating table or something.
Exactly. It requires an incredible amount of finesse and control. And then on top of that, you have the challenge of scaling up these systems. Right now, the DNA-based quantum computers that we have are still very small, very limited in their capabilities. So to scale them up, to be able to handle more complex computations, you have to overcome some really significant engineering and design obstacles.
So it's like a monumental task, but the potential payoff seems huge. So, I mean, what kind of breakthroughs could we see with DNA-based quantum computing? What are some of the things that we could be looking at?
The possibilities are really exciting. One area where I think this could have a major impact is in drug discovery and development. Imagine being able to simulate the interactions between really complex molecules with a level of accuracy that we've never been able to achieve before, that could allow scientists to design drugs that are far more effective with far fewer side effects.
So it's like having a virtual laboratory.
Exactly. You could test and refine treatments at the molecular level before you even start doing clinical trials.
That's amazing.
Hmm.
And beyond medicine, what other applications are we looking at?
Well, I think DNA-based quantum computers could also revolutionize materials science, leading to the creation of new materials with properties that we can only dream of today. Things like super efficient solar cells, self-healing materials, even fabrics that can change color on demand. The possibilities are really mind-boggling.
Wow. It seems like this convergence of biology and technology is really pushing the boundaries of what we thought was possible. But before we get too carried away with all the potential benefits, it's important to also think about the ethical implications.
Absolutely. I mean, as with any powerful technology, there's always the potential for misuse, and we need to have some really thoughtful discussions about the ethical implications of DNA-based quantum computing to ensure that these technologies are developed and used responsibly and for the benefit of humanity.
Yeah, for sure. So what are some of the specific concerns that we should be thinking about?
Well, one concern is the potential for bioweapons. Imagine this technology falling into the wrong hands. It could be used to create incredibly powerful and dangerous weapons, or to manipulate genetic information in ways that are unethical and harmful.
It's a scary thought.
It is, and it's something that we need to be very mindful of.
Yeah.
We need to make sure that we have the appropriate safeguards in place to prevent this kind of misuse.
And what about the issue of access? Is there a risk that this technology could further widen the gap between those who have access to it and those who don't?
That's another important consideration. We need to ensure that the benefits of these innovations are shared equitably and that everyone has the opportunity to benefit from them.
So we need to be proactive in addressing these ethical challenges.
Absolutely. We can't just wait for problems to arise. We need to be thinking about these issues now and working to develop solutions before it's too late.
So it sounds like we need a lot more open dialogue and collaboration between scientists, ethicists, and policymakers.
Absolutely. We need to bring all these different perspectives together to ensure that these technologies are developed and used in a way that benefits all of humanity.
Welcome back to Le Podcast de Philippe for this final part of our deep dive. And we're going even deeper into this world where DNA meets quantum computing. It's really fascinating.
Yeah, we've talked about the incredible potential of DNA,
Yeah.
as a way to store data and how it could really kind of revolutionize computing through quantum mechanics.
It is amazing, like these two fields that you just wouldn't think would go together are sort of converging
Right?
to create these possibilities we couldn't even have imagined a few years ago.
Yeah, and what I find really striking is how this convergence really challenges our understanding of, where does the natural world end and the digital world begin?
Exactly. Yeah, if we can store information in the very building blocks of life,
Right.
does that mean we're blurring the line between living organisms and machines?
Yeah.
And what does that mean for our future?
Yeah, that's a really profound question, and it raises, some really important philosophical and ethical considerations that we need to be thinking about as we go further down this road, as we venture into this uncharted territory. We need to be really mindful of what the potential consequences could be.
Yeah, for sure. And then we've talked about the potential benefits, things like personalized medicine and these groundbreaking new materials. But what about the downsides? I mean, what are some of the potential negative impact that we should be thinking about?
Well, one of the biggest concerns is the potential for misuse. Imagine if this technology fell into the wrong hands. It could be used to create incredibly powerful bioweapons or to manipulate genetic information in ways that are unethical and really harmful.
Yeah, it's a scary thought.
It is, and it's not something that we can just ignore. We need to be proactive in thinking about these risks and developing safeguards to prevent them.
So what can we do? I mean, how do we ensure that these technologies are developed and used responsibly?
Well, I think one of the most important things is to foster open dialogue and collaboration between scientists, ethicists, policymakers.
Hmm.
We need to bring all these different perspectives together to have a conversation about the ethical implications of this technology and to develop guidelines for its responsible development and use.
So it's not just about the science, it's about the societal impact as well.
Exactly. We need to think about the big picture, and make sure that these technologies are used for the benefit of all humankind, not just a select few.
That's a really important point, and it's something that we all need to be thinking about as we move forward. So as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of DNA and quantum computing, I'm left with a sense of awe at the possibilities, but also a sense of caution. We're really at a crossroads here, and it's up to us to choose the right path.
I agree. The potential for good is immense, but so are the risks. We need to proceed with both curiosity and a deep sense of responsibility.
Well said. And that's all for this episode of A Podcast de Philippe. Thanks for joining us on this incredible journey, and until next time, keep those minds curious and engaged.